It's 5:45 a.m. and I'm going to take a bus for 3.5 hours to visit a museum. Why? Let me explain. I was a teenager when my mom forced me to read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I loved the book but have never been too fascinated by it. That was the only book I read by Mark Twain. Later, when I went to college, I took a course during which we would only read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn for 16 weeks straight. Some of you might be surprised that such a course even exists. The college at the end of the day is to prepare you for future jobs, and what would understanding Huckleberry Finn get me, right? Right, it prepared me for nothing, but I fell in love with the spirits of Huck Finn. Let me quickly remind you the plot of the book. At the end of the adventures of Tom Sawyer, Huck and Tom find a lot of money, and this book takes off from there. Widow Douglas tries to educate him, teach him manners and religion. Then his father, an abusive drunk, comes back to town because he thinks Huck has a lot of money. Being scared that his dad would spend all his money on alcohol and beat the shit out of him, Huck exchanges $1,000 for $1. His father still drags him out of the widow's house, and after a few days of abuse, Huck stages his own death, gets a little raft, starts sailing down on the Mississippi River, and runs away from everybody. Soon he meets an escaped slave called Jim, who heard that his owner wanted to sell him for $800. In search for freedom, together 13-year-old Huck and fled Jim start this journey on the river. A lot is going on after that, but I'm not going to bother you with details. I know the book was controversial about slavery when it was first published, and even today some states decided to stop teaching it in high schools. I grew up in a place where systematic racism was never a thing, and this part of the book never spoke to me. But moving to the States definitely made me aware of how deep the roots of racism are, even today. But I really don't want to get into this argument. I think the most fascinating thing about this book for me is the characteristics of Huck and his free and adventurous personality. And I just love how the book ends. At the end of the book, Huck wants to escape again because, quote, "And Sally, she's going to adopt me and civilize me, and I can't stand it. I've been there before." These are the most beautiful final lines, seriously. Anyway, I arrived in Hartford, Connecticut, just to visit the house of Mark Twain, aka Samuel Clemens, because I think that that's the closest I can get to Huckleberry Finn. This is like the worst weather you want to have on a day trip. It was supposed to be 18 degrees and sunny, and it's like 8 degrees and the gloomiest weather of all. The first spot I'm going to is a breakfast place. It's a vegetarian little cafe. This is beautiful, right? I'm gonna have a nice breakfast, enjoy my time there, because the only time I could reserve a spot in the museum was 1:30, so I have like 2.5 hours. My whole day was planned around this museum and then chilling in the park and having some kind of like a lunch or picnicky thingy outside, but I mean, 2 minutes ago in the park, this guy came to me asking me what my name was and my number and blah blah. I politely left him, and I wanted to like take out the camera and like start filming him, but then I got scared that he would get more aggressive. In these situations, the best way is to like be polite and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I had to go, I had to run." He seemed a little... Which one? Okay, Simos. This is the kind of architecture I love, like old brick buildings and cute little cafes on the first ground, and then houses or offices or whatever on the second. I think it's very specific to New England. Everywhere I went in New England was the same, and I love that aesthetics a lot. I believe that Mississippi in the book is a metaphor of freedom and this space where Huck Finn can be whatever or whoever he wants to be, and he does grow as a person on the raft because he sees a lot. So like any kind of life journey, Mississippi is also dangerous, exciting, scary, and fascinating at the same time. Huck Finn, at the end of the book, you can sense that he's like more mature for his age. He's more empathetic toward the Duke and the King, for example, who are horrible people who get punished, but he still expresses his sadness for human injustice. So Huck Finn definitely achieves something that all of us, the travelers, want to achieve, which is to be a slightly better version of your previous self. And that's personally my takeaway from any kind of trip or adventure, or a book even. Like, book can be an adventure, but through somebody else's imagination or eyes. So I don't know, man, like this book has been inspiring me in many different ways. And sometimes I think that getting inspired by reading a fiction is equally as important as going out and doing it by yourself. For example, in my case, I only know one way of travel, okay? This is how I do it. It works for me, and I've been doing it for years, and I'm happy with that. To learn that there are people doing it completely differently, and then having this different perspective of what travel is, gives me much more like inspiration. I remember I would go on a trip and I would just walk around and take pictures, do nothing, like check out nothing inside. I would come back to my hometown and people would be like, "What did you do?" And I'd be like, "Sorry? I'm just recording a video." Oh, it's for myself. I do YouTube videos. I'm just gonna go out.
Who are you?
I'm just a person.
On somebody's private property, you videoing something?
Sorry. Anyway, as I was saying, I would go on a trip and come back home, and then people would be like, "Hey, what did you do?" And I was like, "Nothing, just walked around." And they would be surprised, like, "What do you mean you just walked around?" And then I felt like I was doing something wrong, you know, but that's what brings me pleasure. That's what I love to do. This city does not feel safe at all. Seriously. Like, what the hell? Someone's just screaming at me. Anyway, my point is, do whatever the hell you want to do. I remember when I finished reading the book, I was very impressed by it, and it was all around me. The whole story, like how simple the life is for Huckleberry Finn, and how he wants to just like be free and doesn't really care about anything like education or civilization or money or anything. There was a time when I lived in my country, Tbilisi, Georgia, and I met this French traveler who was traveling exactly how I wanted to travel, on his bicycle, backpacking, just going to places, taking his time. We eventually ended up walking in a park where he saw a lot of tents. He really insisted to go and see what was happening in those tents. So it was like a little campsite in the center of the park, in the center of the city. We got closer and we realized that those people camped out to save the trees that the city wanted to cut down. Most of them were foreigners, mostly from Scandinavia and Germany, from very rich countries, from rich families, and those were the people who refused that lifestyle. Instead of having a nice education, going to a college, have a diploma, a career, whatever, instead of that, they decided to literally build like bank beds on trees. So those people really seemed like Huckleberry Finns to me. I remember stepping out from that park and coming out in this noisy street and seeing all these people and all this fuss and thinking that there is a contrast, you know, like there's people appreciating this and people appreciating that, and then I kind of felt like I needed to choose the side. I needed to choose who I wanted to be in that specific moment. Here's what happened next. I had this beautiful bag that I saved for like a month or a couple months. I really wanted to buy that bag, so I saved up and bought it, and I felt this urge, like there was something inside me that was like roaring. It wanted to tear my body apart and just like come out and scream. So the first thing that I thought in my head was that I needed to get rid of this bag. I don't know why, like I have no idea. Maybe like I said, Huck exchanged $1,000 into $1, and that really inspired me in a way not to be materialistic about things. So I went to, I don't know why again, but I wanted to get rid of something that was super important and valuable for me and very material. So I went to this lady who sold flowers in the neighborhood, and I told her I would give you this bag, which is super new, super fresh, really expensive, and then you give me that little bunch of flowers. And she looks at me, she goes like, what is this crazy chick talking about? And then she was like, yeah, okay. And then we exchanged things. And then that moment, it really felt like I was a little bit of Huck Finn, and that was beautiful.
The outspoken critic of inequality and hypocrisy. During his long life, he would travel the United States and nearly every continent, witness the major events of the 19th and early 20th centuries.
All right, I'm out. They did not let us take any videos or pictures inside, but they do have a virtual tour on their website. So I'm just gonna screenshot it and then tell you what I've learned about Mark Twain today. Mark Twain grew up on the banks of Mississippi River in Hannibal, Mississippi. His uncle owned a slave, and he spent most of his boyhood summers playing in the enslaved people's quarters, listening to tales and the spirituals that he would enjoy throughout his life. In 1847, when Samuel was 11, his father died. He had to start working and supporting his family, so he left school to work as a printer's apprentice for a local newspaper. That's when he got interested in writing. Samuel Clemens traveled a lot. I mean, a lot. He almost visited every single continent. He also worked on a steamship and wrote a book called Life on Mississippi. He really loved that river. Later, when he started writing more and giving lectures, he could afford a house like this. But unfortunately, he was not as smart of a businessman as he was a writer. He made terrible investment decisions, which led the family to bankruptcy. He made a joke once that goes like this: October. This is one of the peculiarly dangerous months to speculate the stocks. The others are July, January, September, April, November, May, March, June, December, August, and February. Samuel, his wife, and 3 daughters needed to leave America and move to Europe, where life was cheaper. Tragically, he outlived 2 of his daughters and 1 son. One of the girls died in this very house, and the rest of the family could not stand living there anymore, and that's when they sold the house. They say that Mark Twain once had 10 cats here in this house, and 7 of them were named after 7 deadly sins. Can you imagine calling your cat Envy? Or like, hey Greed, hey Lust, come here, it's your dinner time. He was a funny guy. This is a truly boring town. I had 3 more hours and absolutely no idea what to do. I'm just gonna keep on walking around, but like I said, it feels really unsafe. It's getting close to 6 p.m. I'm gonna head to the bus station. I want to thank you very, very much for watching this video. I love you. See you soon. Mwah. Take care. Like, subscribe, do all that shit.